Okay, hello everybody and welcome to the webinar this afternoon. My name is Todd McGee. I'm the Public Relations Director for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and the President of the National Association of County Information Officers, and glad to have everybody with us today. Looks like we're having a pretty good turnout. I want to thank, before we get started, Christy Dalton from Government Social Media, who's going to be our guest speaker, and we'll get to her in a few minutes. But before we get to her, a few housekeeping things I want to go through. In particular, we have a lot of people on here who may have never heard of NACIO before, so I just wanted to give you a little input on what we are. NACIO is an affiliate group of NACO, which is the National Association of Counties, and we are basically the public information officers, communications directors, that kind of personnel for county governments and state associations of counties from across the nation. Now, you can check us out on the web at nacio.org. We're also on facebook.com. Search for National Association of County Information Officers, and you will be amazed to see that we have more than 1,000 likes on our Facebook page. Apparently NACIO, those initials, mean something in another country, because I would say probably 80% of the folks who have liked us do not appear to be from the United States of America. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but apparently there's NACIO means something else to another country, and they've all flocked to our page for some reason. You can also follow us on Twitter at NACIO66. And before we get started, I've got a few polls that I want to get everybody to participate in. The first one is, are you a NACIO member? So just take a few minutes to click yes or no on that. Just like to see who we have who's joining us. For those of you who are not members and who are eligible to join, we hope you will consider joining. Okay, and then the next poll will show the results of this first one, I guess. You'll see that 57% yes, 43% no, so that's great. The next poll we want to do is, are you currently using social media? You've got three options on this one: yes, no, would love to, but I'm a one-person shop who can't do everything. All right, so that is great to see, and I'll share the results of this poll here. So you can see the vast majority are on social media, so that's great. So then let's do the next poll. Which social media sites are you using? And you should be able to select more than one option on this poll: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and other. It looks like it is allowing you to select more than one option. All right, looks like most people have voted. So I'll share those results. Lots of people on Twitter and Facebook, good number on YouTube, Instagram, and then a good number are on some other social media sites. And believe me, there's a ton of them out there. And then one last poll. What do you think is the best value of social media? You've got four options on this one, or three options on this one. Distribute important information quickly, engage your audience in a discussion, allows you to control the message. You can choose all of the above, and you can choose none of the above. And if you have some different thoughts on this poll or any of the others, feel free to submit them into the chat box there on the window. Okay, so let's close this one and then take a look at the results. So distribute important information quickly was the sole choice of a lot of people, but the number one answer was all of the above. Get information out quickly, engage your audience in the discussion, and gives you the opportunity to control the message. So thank everybody for participating in those polls. And one of the things that we like to do on NACIO and on these webinars is try to share information as much as we can. And so I just wanted to share one little thing I found out about Twitter lately that I think is pretty cool and could have some uses. Well, before we get to that, let's go over these upcoming events for NACIO. If you're coming to the NACO Legislative Conference in February, February 22 to 25 in Washington, D.C., we've got a couple of NACIO meetings scheduled. On February 22nd, which I believe is a Sunday, we'll have our regular business meeting at 10:30 in the morning till about noon. And then that afternoon, we normally have what we call a media roundtable, where we invite the attendees, the elected officials from around the country to come in and just basically shoot the breeze, talk about some kind of controversial issue that may be going on in their county that they're wanting some PR guidance on how to handle. We decided to change that this year. We wanted to try to create a session that's geared a little more towards our members. And so we had a webinar last year about this time on creating a county communications plan with Dr. Jackie Lambiese from the Texas Christian University Public Communicator School. She has agreed to come to D.C. and conduct a session for us. So if you are a PIO and you're going to be at this NACO conference and you'd like to learn about creating a county communications plan that you could take back to your county, we ask you to come and join us there. That's going to be on the same day on Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. in the same room. So we're trying to get some good information out to our members. The next day we will also be doing a workshop. We haven't found out yet what the topic is going to be. So we're trying to put together a lot of information and opportunities for our members to come to this conference and pick up some things that they can take back with them. Also, just a reminder that our 2015 Awards of Excellence is right around the corner. We're still looking for someone to serve as the chair for that. We've got one person who has expressed an interest, so I'll be reaching out to them. But if you're interested, please let me know. It's a great way to get involved with NACIO. The members, if you are a current member, you should have gotten a renewal notice for next year already. If you haven't, just shoot me an email afterwards, and we'll make sure we get that out to you. Now, as I was saying a minute ago, one of the things we like to do is share information. So I found a Twitter thing on Twitter that I thought was pretty cool that I just wanted to share pretty quickly. So there's my Twitter page. You all know that if you've got the Twitter app on your phone, whenever you get a tweet that's retweeted or somebody replies to one of your tweets or favorites one of your tweets, it pops up and says, hey, your tweet just got retweeted or whatever. But you can also set it up to where you can have the tweets from specific followers pop up. And so I think this has a good application for local governments, particularly local governments that use Twitter to communicate during times of an emergency, so where you would want somebody to get the information out immediately. So there's my Twitter page. There's my soccer team that I coach. There's my son, the one-armed boy on the back row there. He actually has both arms. He's just holding his right one behind me for some reason. And so what you would do is go to your Twitter page, or if you've got it on your phone, bring up the Twitter ID, make sure you're logged in as yourself, and then you go to the account that you want to follow. So let's say I wanted to get the, so of course this is not going to work. So I wanted I wanted the tweets from NACIO to pop up on my phone every time that NACIO tweets. So I would go and click on the little wrench button on the NACIO page, and then select that option to receive the mobile notifications for NACIO's tweets. So that's pretty cool to me. So every time that NACIO tweets something, it will pop up on my phone. I thought that was pretty neat. That's something that you might want to consider for your local government. Again, like I said, particularly if you are tweeting using your Twitter feed to get important information out during times of emergency. We've already seen some big snow, weather-related emergencies in various parts of the country. So that might be something you could think of. One thing you could do is create a short little YouTube video to show your users how to sign up. And then every time you get a new follower, just send them the link to that video. Say, hey, thanks for following me. Here's something that you can do to make sure you get our information out quickly. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. But now I'm going to get to the main reason why you're all here, and that is to let Christy Dalton come on and talk a little bit about some tips for generating content for social media sites. So Christy, are you ready to take it away?
Sure, I'm all set.
All right, here you go.
Okay, I'm showing my screen. Great. Todd, do you see my screen up?
I do. I think you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thanks for connecting to the webinar. Thank you, Todd, for inviting me. I am honored to speak here in front of the National Association of County Information Officers, and also some of you who are outside the organization, but I would encourage you to check it out. It really is an excellent resource for counties. As you are going to Twitter to follow NACIO 66, make sure and follow me as well. I'm at Christy Dalton 22. And also my company is Government SM, and you can follow me there as well. So I have this online personality called GovGirl, and I created this online video show at govgirl.com. And I've been in the government space I was in government for about 10 years, and I worked directly on social media programs. I most recently worked for the city of Reno, Nevada, and I worked for eRepublic, the company behind Government Technology Magazine and Governing Magazine, and Emergency Management as their new media director. And then most recently, I'm working with my company, Government Social Media, and part of what I do is I train government agencies best practices on social media. So through my new company, I get the privilege of hearing some of just the best stories in social engagement. And one of the topics that comes up all the time is how do we continually produce content for our social media channels? Our city or our county or our state, we've created social media profiles for various agencies underneath in various departments, and how do we keep up with it? How do we generate constant ideas, and how do we do it in a way where it's strategic and it focuses on our mission and our goals? We have an interesting time in government in that it's so different than the small business challenge. The business challenge in the private sector is always how do we come up with content? But with government, a lot of times it's how do we filter this content that we have, because we have departments and events that are just constantly doing things, and we constantly have new rules, new laws, commission actions. We have so much stuff. How do we filter that in a strategic way so that it makes sense on our social media networks? And so I'd like to cover with you today several different things. First of all, taking a look at social media content strategy for county government. I think it's very important to start off focusing on that content strategy, and it's going to guide your content on your networks. Also, how to ensure that you don't run out of ideas. We want to have resources for you so that you can easily come up with content. And also, I'm going to share with you some of my personal favorite tools and websites that I actually use in my own social media profiles for the business as well as personally, and I'll share with you it's really some lifesavers in terms of coming up with content for social media, and I'll share these tools with you. Okay, let's dive right in. Again, make sure if you have any questions for me to go ahead and type them in the chat box, and Todd is going to be taking a look at that, and at the very end we'll do a little bit of Q&A. Okay, so I think the most important first step is to develop a publishing framework. Now, that's a fancy way to say where you're basically coming up with your resources for making this all happen. I think the most important first step for you is to schedule a regular time and place for you to work on your content. I know this sounds like a really basic thing, but it's actually important. If you never actually schedule a time and place, you'll never get to the other steps if you don't do this. So this could mean just going to your calendar and booking an hour of time a week to work on social media content, or booking a conference room if you work with a team, but you need to establish that time and that location to work on content or planning your strategy. It actually is important. A little bit of this planning up front goes a long way in being able to maintain your social media profiles. Okay, next, you're going to want to create a content calendar. You hear a lot about content calendars. It's basically a calendar format, looks just like the monthly calendar you have on your wall, and you identify some major activities, major events that your county is holding throughout the year. And these are things that you do every year. You know, you always have this wellness check, or you always have these high-profile, say, public budget hearings or something like that. You want to mark those out for the year, and those correspond with the social content that you'll be sharing during those times. It's an easy way to generate ideas for what to talk about because you do it every year. Right now you might be sharing that in the tickler file for your press releases. Well, this one's focused specifically on social media. So list out those priority events and activities. You're also going to want to make sure that it's shareable if you have a team. So use a shared Outlook calendar or a Google Calendar that you can all access, but just make sure it's accessible by everyone who is working on social media within your agency. It's also really important to set up an area for resources. This could just be a folder on a shared drive somewhere where you share your thoughts, where you come up with ideas, where you share screenshots, where you share information pertaining to the content calendar. You could use a Google Docs. I'm a big fan of Google Docs. I've tried Evernote as well for sharing social media resources, and it has a pretty cool built-in feature where you can take screenshots of websites for ideas, social media, easily share that to your Evernote folder, and right there on your screenshot you can make notes to yourself about why you think this content is interesting or what it pertains to. You can add keywords to it that correspond with dates of priority activities or events on your content calendar. Really, really cool tool. You should definitely check out using Evernote. Also, you're going to want to set up your publishing tool. Now, your publishing tool means that you're probably not going to Twitter proper, Facebook proper, even LinkedIn, Google+, to post all of your messages. You're probably going to want to use a publishing tool so you can do this quicker and you can just schedule more conveniently. Popular publishing tools in the government space are Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a popular one. Hoot like the owl, suite like a really nice hotel room, Hootsuite. Also, let's see, Sprout Social is pretty big. That's Sprout Social. And these are content scheduling tools where you can, in one location, schedule your social media posts and then mark which networks you want it to go to. Now, I will say that Facebook has their own publishing scheduler that you can use right there when you create the posts. And they've made it a lot simpler than it used to be. You used to have like 13 steps to publish content, and now they've made it very, very simple. Twitter actually has its own publishing scheduler tool. You're not going to find it at regulartwitter.com. Go to ads.twitter.com. That's ads as in advertisements. .twitter.com, and you set up an ads account, but you don't actually have to publish any ads. You can just use it for the scheduling features, and you can schedule your tweets. Definitely recommend you check that out. Okay, so that's setting up your framework and getting everything in place for your content. Now we're going to dive into establishing that content strategy, because I think it's immensely important in terms of filtering the content that you're going to publish on your social networks. You have to have a strategy behind it, or else you're just sharing everything that comes in, and it's not going to strategically fill your goals. So in identifying your content strategy, first of all, I think it's very important to define your agency priorities. And your agency priorities are your council priorities, your commission, your county commission, or even just at the agency level that you're at. Maybe you're in the sheriff's office, or maybe you're in Health and Human Services, what your individual agency's priorities are, because these are very, very important. You're also going to take a look at what your audience wants, and I'll describe shortly how this all comes together and how you're able to do that. You look at your agency priorities, you look at what your audience wants, and where that overlaps becomes your shared priorities. You're going to concentrate on your shared priorities. And this is how this whole thing winds up being pretty darn cool, and I'm going to visualize this for you, how it all comes together. In creating your content strategy and looking at all those priorities, in the one circle you have your county priorities, and in your other circle you have what the audience wants. So how do we figure out what our county priorities are? That's a pretty big statement to make. Let's boil it down a little bit more. It might look like, for instance, your elected officials, what their priorities are for your county. A lot of times commissioners go on an annual retreat. They figure out what their official public and internal priorities are for the coming year or for the coming 2 years, and they share that with staff, and then it's the county administrator's position of filtering that down to the different departments, making sure that the agency heads are aware of those priorities. So you might have those established public priorities. You also probably have a mission for your very own agency if your agency within the county is part of the health agency. You probably have a mission. Dig it up, find it on a brochure somewhere, find it on your website. Somebody wrote it for a reason, and that reason is now. You're going to take a look at that mission. You're also going to look at some of your high priority activities and events that you have every year. You always have the wellness check. You always have the day where the public comes and looks at the sheriff's office or something like that. You always have these high profile events. They are priorities your agency supports. So you're going to look at all those things, and you have messages relating to all of those different priorities. And then on the flip side, your audience also has its wants as well. Your audience being the public, your audience being the citizens, being your visitors to your county, being businesses even in your county, your citizens. They have wants. They have things that they are going to come to you for because they're actively interested in finding these out. So let's see. Let me click on this here. So with your audience wants, you can find some of this data out. Do you have a 311 call center or a call center for your county, a receptionist line, something like that? I guarantee they're going to have top calls for service. For instance, when I used to work for the city of Reno, Nevada, our top calls for service at our 311 call center were always a handful of things. Graffiti was always on the very top. Spray painting in different locations, and car abandonment was a top call as well. People would call in and say, hey, there's this car on this road, it hasn't been moving, in 6 weeks, what's going on? And it was important to talk to the 311 call center because I would have never realized that car abandonment, that was the second most requested bit of information or thing that they reported at their call center. And that's very important because we know that this is the information that the audience wants. Do you have a live chat service on your website or a live help service? What are their top questions? Also, you can find out in a big way what your audience wants by taking a look at your website analytics. I cannot stress this enough. One area where you really want to look at is search. What are people searching for on your website? If you're not the web person, make a connection with the web person and ask them for the website analytics on the top searches within the last few months. You can learn a lot of data from that, what people are searching for. You can also use a third-party tool like socialmention.com. Now, Social Mention, you can plug in terms and you can learn about what people are writing about on social media, what they're tweeting about, what they're posting on blogs about within your community. So you can see what some of the hot issues are on social media. Now, you have your county priorities, you have what the audience wants, and where this overlaps in the middle of those two circles, this is your shared priorities. Your shared priorities is what you're going to focus on in your content strategy on social media. Aha, here's the real point here, is that those shared priorities, that's going to be your content strategy. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to talk about other issues that are important to your county, but you know that those shared priorities are going to resonate the most. You're going to get the most reach out of those social media messages. You're going to get the most bang for your buck. So what you're going to do here with these shared priorities is go back to that content calendar we talked about at the beginning, armed with this information, and you're going to focus on those shared priorities. So, for instance, if one of your county priorities, your leadership has designated sustainability as one of your top priorities for the upcoming year, to promote recycling programs and things like that. And you've also discovered that your citizens, through, say, your website analytics, they're looking at green information. Through socialmention.com, you find that they are tweeting about, how can I be more green in your city? You know that one of your shared priorities is sustainability, right? So you're going to focus most on that because you know that that's going to resonate really well. You're going to get the most shares, you're going to get the most retweets, and it's going to work out the best for you. Okay, hopefully that makes sense for you. All right, we're going to move on here and talk a little bit about available channels. So now that you've identified your content strategy, you need to look at what available channels there are for you, and it varies based on the different types of content. So any piece of content that you want to share on social media, you've got a couple of different options, right? You could post it on your blog, you could post it on your official government website, you can share it on social media, or you could do a traditional press release. You've got these different options. When it comes to identifying your social media outlets, you have different options as well. Your agency might be on Facebook, on Twitter, Google+, or YouTube. I want you to think even more specifically than that about a couple of different content types. One is if it's a photo. If it's a channel for a photo, you might be looking at a Pinterest or a Flickr or an Instagram, for instance, if you're on these social networks. And they all have different audiences, and different types of content performs well on each of these mediums differently. I want you to think about that. Also, in particular for events, think about the different channels you have for promoting events. Okay, we're government. We have all types of events throughout the year. So your high priority events, you want to think about how you can share these on social media. You want to look at perhaps you stream it live on your website. Perhaps you have Instagram activity. You're taking photos actually on the ground at that event. Perhaps you're doing live tweeting. You might do a YouTube live. You might, during the event, also post it on other social networks. And after the event, you might pull everything together using a service like Storify. A Storify.com service, you can take different feeds from different social networks. You can take Facebook posts, you can take tweets, and you can put it together and create this sort of an online archive of what happened on social media during your event. So think about all those different channels that you have for promoting your content. And here's where it all comes together. One of the things that I teach with my clients is to pull it all together with some type of social media planning sheet. Now, a social media planning sheet takes all of this and puts it together. Let me walk you through this. So say your bit of content is a water quality report, just something that you maybe are required to report on. It might be an annual air quality report or a quarterly report. That is something you're required to report on. But if you take a look at your priorities, it's within your priority, but it's not really within your audience priority. No one's really looking at the water quality report. Then you might identify this as having a low priority. Then you're going to want to identify what channels. Well, maybe typically for low priority pieces of content, you might only send out a tweet and you don't really spend, because this is all about the balance of your time and what you have time to focus on. And if it's not a shared priority, then maybe just we send out a tweet on it. It's low priority. But still, you always want to identify your key messages that you share with the public about anything. Your key message for this annual or quarterly water quality report might be that your water quality has improved because we replaced ailing infrastructure. Okay, then we're also going to want to look at hashtags. Maybe we always use hashtag water, hashtag H2O for something like this water quality report. And then one important bit of advice I have is to always include a call for action. I think government agencies leave this out so many times in their social media messages. They don't have that call for action. And just general awareness about something really isn't a good call for action. Your call for action might just be, hey, sign up to get this report via email. Alrighty, so this is what you'd want to identify for a lower priority item. Well, what if you have something that's high priority? Well, that might look like a mandatory water reduction or an emergency air quality notice or something like that. Now, the state of California actually has had to deal with this mandatory water reduction messages to the public just because of the extreme water shortage and the extreme drought in the area. So this was very high priority for them. They were dealing with this on a daily basis. So for this, we'd identify that as high priority. And maybe for high priority items, we find that we want to share them not only on Twitter, but on multiple social networks. We want to share our key messages that people are asked to reduce their water use by 5%. We want to really take a look at the hashtags that we're going to use. We want to see what's mainstream. I can tell you that people were using the drought hashtag, people were using the water hashtag a lot in California when they were talking about this big problem. And then, of course, the call for action as well. Now, the cool thing is that you're going to see patterns emerge as you start to do this with your content. You're going to see that, typically a medium level priority or high level priority, we typically share it on these different channels. And then what happens is you start to form a plan. You start to have these sheets together and you start to form a plan that, okay, we know what to do now. We have this bit of content, we have done this before, or we have a good plan for high priority bits of content. So what we're going to do is we're going to share it on these social channels, we're going to use these hashtags, and here's our call to action. So you start to form that plan and you see some really cool things that happen with this. And again, just those patterns begin to emerge as you do this over time. Now, let's really focus in the remaining few minutes here on constantly generating ideas, because this is immensely important. One thing I'd advise you to do is to keep inspiration sheets. What is that? Okay, inspiration sheets is just a fancy way to say you keep some documents in that shared area that I recommended earlier in the webinar. You keep some documents in there for your reference as you are posting to social networks, right? So one inspiration sheet you might keep is just a document where you have listed headline templates. A headline template is just going to trigger your idea generation as you're creating headlines for those bits of content. Once you get that content sheet filled out, how do you actually draw attention to it? So a headline template is going to just be a Word document, a text document where you have written something like 3 things you should know about blank, or top 2 reasons why blank. Because we know that headlines like this perform really well on social media. So check out good examples of what you yourself click on social media and use that as a headline template. Of course, you would fill in the blanks if you used it for your own purposes. You would say something like, top 2 reasons why wellness checks really work, or something like that. But it helps you generate ideas when you need to be creative. Also, I recommend that you create a content formula sheet. So it's basically another document that you're creating that has, goes beyond the headline template, and it's really the content, the crux of these posts that you're posting on social media. Your content formula sheet takes a look at some things that we know perform well on social media. Like, for instance, you might write, need advice on blank, then you have your link to whatever it is, and your advice on blank, you'd fill it in with something. Then you'd have a link to whatever it is, and you'd have hashtag tips. People love that hashtag tips. They actually look for that on Twitter. You can use hashtags anywhere now. You can use them on Facebook. You can use them on Google+. Not so much on LinkedIn, but the other social platforms are really embracing it. So need advice on whatever that activity might be, but maybe apply for a bit. Need advice on business license applications, then provide your link with hashtag tips. Let's see, another popular formula I've seen is question. So you literally write out the word question. How many of you have ever been to, and then you fill in the blank with whatever event or activity you're talking about. And the thing is that you can reuse these content formulas for different types of content. Next month, no one's going to remember that you sent out a tweet on need advice on, and it was a different type of activity. So you can reuse these. Fill in the blanks also work really well. For instance, you write, fill in the blank. Our family has visited blank park most often in the community, or something like that. Fill in the blanks are the sort of just bait out there where people want to respond. They have a response and they want to, so it really encourages interaction. Another content item you can post, particularly on Instagram or sharing the photo on Twitter or even Facebook, is just around town type pictures. So within your county, something cool going on. People like to see these when it's inclement weather. People like to see those snow pictures. They like to see the rain pictures. And it's just something that gives you an idea for content, and people really like to share it. All right, we have a few more slides here, so moving quickly. In your content formula sheet, don't forget about reminding yourself about things that people do on social media. For instance, a hashtag that people use on Thursdays is hashtag TBT. It stands for Throwback Thursday. They use that hashtag and then they show a photo of something that happened back in the day, a historical photo. I've seen public agencies be really fun with this. Things like a building, your county administration building, a historical photo of back in the day, use hashtag TBT, or maybe it's a longtime commissioner or county administrator and you show them their picture from 30 years ago or something. Those tend to be really fun on social media. Also, remind yourself on your content formula sheet to use Follow Friday. People use this on Twitter where they indicate another profile handle that they're recommending for you to follow. So you could tweet from your county's handle, Follow Friday, and you could put the city on here, or you could put one of your agencies within the county, and then you always want to identify why you'd follow them for great info or tips on, Health and Human Services or something along those lines. Hashtag trivia also performs pretty well on social media. Hashtag trivia, and then ask them any sort of question. People love, again, to fill in those blanks. Okay, so if you need some more ideas, I've got lots of ideas for you here. If you're looking for more ideas on what to share on social media, check out setting up a Google alert. Okay, a Google alert is kind of old-fashioned because it's been around for a while. You just Google alerts and you can find where you set that up. And basically, you're telling Google that anytime these keywords have been talked about somewhere on the internet, they'll send you an email. They'll actually send you an email and say, this was just online, this was just in the news. So you want to search for a key term like county of, and then whatever your county is, and just so you're not getting a amazing number of these alerts, you might want to narrow it down a little bit more in things like ranked best or ranked top, because then you can get an email anytime your county was mentioned, say in the local news, or somebody wrote a blog post about it, or another agency wrote about you, and that gives you an idea of something that you can share or retweet or favorite for your social networks as well. Now, another tip is that within Facebook, you can set up a Facebook watch list. Now, your watch list it's only internal for you to see as the administrator of your agency's Facebook page, but you can set up a watch list of other Facebook pages. So we could actually go into our own Facebook page. We could set up a watch list for the NACIO Facebook page. And it's just internal for us to see, but we can dive into a little bit of that page's analytics. We can see what content is performing well on their pages, on their Facebook pages, so that gives us ideas of what we can share on our own Facebook pages. And you can add, it used to be up to 5, you might be able to add up to 10 different pages to watch right now. So you can see what's performing well on their pages, and it also gives you a resource to curate content from other sources. So if something's performing well on, say, the city's page, you might want to share that content and share in some of those, some of that interaction they're getting. You can always, if you're looking for content, cover events live. So no matter how boring the event, you can also make it a lot more interesting just by covering it live on social media. If you say you're live tweeting from an event, it just inherently makes it a little bit more exciting, and it gives you a lot of content. I recommend that you invite yourself to meetings. So as the information officer for your agency, you have your own meetings, but your other agencies also have their internal staff meetings where they're maybe talking about their priorities from the coming year. Just invite yourself to those meetings. You certainly don't want to go to everyone, but just be a fly on the wall and learn about things that you might not normally hear about are going on in other agencies that you can help share those on your social networks. Be a master of repurposing content. Private industry is really, really good at this. They write a blog post, they'll share it on their social networks, then a few days later they'll share it again, maybe a different time of day, a couple of days later, then the next month they'll share it again. They're masters at repurposing content. So many times in government public information we wind up just posting once that day and then it's gone and forgotten. We think it's old content. It's not old. Tie it into something that's currently happening, repurpose that content. Another idea I have is to go to knowyourmeme.org. Knowyourmeme.org is the website that's going to tell you about all of those internet memes, those pictures with the big capital letter words on them that people just love to share on social media. This website is going to tell you why they're sharing it. It's going to tell you the history of certain memes. This is important in government because before you share something, you want to make sure that you understand exactly what they're saying, exactly what the funny part of it is, especially if you want to create your own meme yourself, which you can do. You could go to meme generator online, but you want to know what you're talking about before you share it. You can also create content on the fly. Within YouTube. Do you have a YouTube channel? A lot of you said that you do. You can create content on the fly now. You don't have to have this full-blown production. You can literally do a webcam capture. You can take a bunch of photos that you already have. Say you did a groundbreaking or a dedication or something like that, a special event. You took a bunch of photos. You can go into YouTube and add all of those photos together, add music to it. You can add some captions and turn it into video content. Really cool resource that you can do with YouTube. Here are a couple of cool examples of what I recommended before, is just sharing random snapshots of around town. A couple of, you have a weather event on the left-hand side that got a lot of shares. On the right-hand side, we're just talking about some neat little flowers, but people love to see something that they're familiar with that are in their own community. I like the quirky things like this. The city of Bend in Oregon, they were at City Hall and they just noticed that there was a duck that walked up to the door. So somebody snapped a picture and posted it on their Facebook page. They got a lot of likes because it was just a random thing that happened. People love to see that sort of behind the scenes type thing that's a day in the life of, an information officer at the city, and, a day in the life you just happen to look outside and see a duck walking up. That's kind of cute. I wanted to share with you just two more things that I personally use these as my tools. I'm sorry, I realize I'm talking a little bit longer than I expected, but it looks to me like everyone's still on the call, so that's actually great. So here's two tools that I use on an everyday basis, and I can tell you that this has changed my social media in terms of the interactions and in terms of how many likes I'm getting, how many followers I'm getting. It's really just night and day difference to what it was before. And I had a pretty good following before, but these have just really changed my world with social media. The one tool is Feedly. Feedly is an awesome resource for giving you ideas for content. Now with Feedly, you basically set up using RSS feeds. Now I never want to assume that people know exactly what I'm talking about when I use an abbreviation or something techie like RSS feed. It's pretty common nowadays, but an RSS feed, like for instance on my website, you can find it in the upper right hand corner with the little orange symbol, and an RSS feed stands for really simple syndication, and you probably have this on your own websites, and it's just a news feed of new content that's posted on your site. At the most basic level, you probably have it for press releases or news releases on your website. If you don't, talk to your web person because you really want to have an RSS feed. So what you can do within Feedly is you can add feeds for all of your favorite sites. I have created it here for some design websites, for some government news websites, some social media websites for sure, like Mashable. HubSpot has a lot of great information on their blog. And so you just add all of these feeds from websites. I added it from my own website. And then anytime you go to Feedly, you get all of their top news. It's an aggregator for all of the top RSS feeds. But it gives you additional features where you can easily share it to your social networks. So what I would do if I was working in county government is I would create a Feedly account, and I would add a category for other counties that I want to follow, either local counties or counties nationally that just have a really high-profile reputation and you want to follow them. I would also create a category for feeds from cities from their website. So you would go to their government website, you would add their feed into your Feedly account. And this does two things. First, it keeps you informed with all the news that are going on by these local agencies. And second, it gives you content to share on social media. So for instance, if there's any agencies that you have a partnership with, maybe you have a university in your area and it behooves you to share some of their content as well. Maybe you have a relationship or even a funding status with your convention authority or your tourism bureau. You might want to add them on here as well, so you can just easily share their content. You don't have to go to all of their websites and find out what's new or just rely that you'll see it on social media. So what I do is I take Feedly and I combine it with another program, Buffer. Now you may have heard about Buffer. You can find them at bufferapp.com. What Buffer does is it allows you to take social media content and not publish it all right away. You can schedule your content to go out at various times. So for instance, it can get pretty sophisticated. You can say, on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, I want my content on this particular social network to be posted at these particular times. And whereas if you used like a Hootsuite or a Sprout Social to schedule content, you could schedule it for a particular time. But with Buffer, you throw everything in this big queue, and it posts based on the rules that you've identified for it. So this is where I want you to take a look at your social media analytics and figure out at what time of the day does my content perform the best on Facebook, at what time of day does my content perform the best on Twitter? And then you go into your buffer and you make that schedule, and you schedule your posts to go out at the most popular times. You're going to get the most bang for your buck. You're going to get the most shares, the most retweets, because these are the most popular times. So I go to my Listly, I find hot topics, I find hot content, or I even just take content from my own site. If you do use Listly, you want to make sure and add your own county agencies if they have an RSS feed to that site so you can easily see what's new. And then within Listly, Feedly, Listly is another service. Within Feedly, you can automatically send them to your buffer. So you just click on a button, it can send it to your buffer, and it will automatically queue it up based on your schedule. You can finally schedule things at times that make sense, that people will consume the content. Now, both of those services, Feedly and Buffer, they do have different levels, so you can sign up for free, and then to add more accounts, which is what I've done, there's a premium per month, either $5 or $10 depending on the service, but I think it's well worth it. Okay, so finally, as we're wrapping up here, I wanted to mention one more thing. If you've enjoyed this type of content and if the conversation about government social media really appeals to you, then I would invite you to attend our conference, our 2015 Conference and Expo. It's the first conference of its kind for specifically for city, county, and state government agencies to learn more about social media, to hear best practices, to hear from some of the big leaders in social media across the country. And you can go to gsmcon.com to learn more about the conference. I hope to see you. It's going to be here in Reno, Nevada, and I hope to get to meet each of you personally. We do have a call for speakers going on right now, and it closes, I believe, in about a week. So if you have a great social media story to share in your county, we would love to hear about it. So please submit a call for speakers, and you get a reduction on your registration if you do so. So that's my little plug for our conference, and I will turn it back over to Todd. If you've noticed any questions come through for me, that would be great. I actually don't see the questions up here, so perhaps you could filter some of them for me, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Christian. Yes, we do have quite a few questions here, so I will just go through them chronologically. Maureen Dilch, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, from Arlington, Virginia, wants to know, do you have an app or a template you recommend for the content calendar?
Oh, that's a good question. An app or a template. You know, I have recently come across a couple of really good content templates. They're not specific to government, but I believe one is from HubSpot, and the other one I just came across, I think it was this week or last week, and I thought it was great. And I'm going to collect those resources, and we recently created a page on our website, governmentsocialmedia.com, for resources. It's governmentsocialmedia.com/resources, and we're starting to put all of those on there, and we have resources for social media policy development and all different types of things. Content calendar is not something that I currently have up there, but I'm going to add those. We're going to add those to the website probably within the next few days here, so check that out. But that's a really good question. I love templates because, you know, it just makes the job so much easier.
All right, another question from Doug Perry, my colleague at the Utah Association of Counties, says they are looking to do some paid social media advertising, particularly videos. Facebook is a platform we are thinking about using, but are there others we should consider for paid media?
Absolutely. Facebook certainly is a really great resource, as you mentioned, for using, for promoting ads. They have just a ton of sophistication. I would also recommend using the Twitter platform if you're pursuing ads, specifically because Twitter has some very unique targeting that you're able to do. You're able to get pretty darn specific. So for instance, you can set up Twitter ads that are just going to be promoted to people who have visited your website. So it can get pretty sophisticated where you can install a tracking pixel on your website which would identify to Twitter the people who have visited your website before, and it could be a particular section on your website or a particular program that you're running. And then you create a Twitter ad that's just for the people who have visited your website before. If they've used, if they have a Twitter handle and if they have visited your website and they're able to connect that to their Twitter handle. But you can get pretty sophisticated in Twitter ads. I'd also recommend checking out LinkedIn ads as well, particularly if your interest is for the human resources side of your agency for hiring really good talent on LinkedIn. You might consider doing some ads for your company page on LinkedIn because as you may or may not know, you can have a company page for your agency and you can do a little bit as far as ads on LinkedIn.
Okay, Gary Herman here from North Carolina, Alexander County says, he's noticed a drastic decrease in the amount of people reached with Facebook posts, and he basically wants to know, is Facebook just fudging with the numbers to encourage you to do paid advertising?
That is a very good question, and it's a very big concern among agencies across the country. I don't believe that they're fudging the numbers in order to get you to create an ad for your Facebook page. I do think that the algorithm has changed. They publicly stated that their algorithm has changed to where you create a post, and whereas a year ago that post would have been seen by 250 people, now it's only seen by 12 people. It's a dramatic increase. The numbers that we have is that roughly 6% of your audience might see your post now on Facebook. There are some best practices that you can do that don't require you to look into ads, although I've seen such amazing success with Facebook ads, and I think government agencies could really harness this if they do it smartly. But things in terms of using a photo, those are getting pretty well shared. Looking at your own analytics and seeing what types of posts are getting shared the most. Does it have a photo, or is it a post that has a link in it? Also using that watch list to see what's resonating really well in terms of being shared and being liked with other Facebook pages as well. Don't include terminology like share this post or like this post or please comment on this or something like that, whereas Facebook a year ago and before, they used to really not look at those as a red flag. Now those are being demoted in the algorithm. And I can say this in an informed way. I've had conversations with the public policy manager at Facebook, and she announced to us just over a year ago about these algorithm changes, and we've seen them being more and more extensive. It can be frustrating. I don't think that they are padding the numbers, though, to make you really look at doing those ads.
Okay, Edwin Birch wants to know, is there a point where social media can become too much? In other words, can you have too many social media outlets out there to the point where it's difficult to manage and you're not really sure what kind of information should go on which channel, vice versa?
Absolutely. I think that you can be spread too thin on too many different social networks. It's a balance, because you want to be on different social networks so that your citizens, your constituents feel as though you're current, you're contemporary, you're on modern platforms. But then also you do have to weigh that with what resources that you have, what content that you have, what performs the best with your particular audience. A lot of public agencies are seeing great success with mediums like Instagram, and then other agencies, their Instagram feeds are really kind of flat, and they're not seeing that much value in it. So I think it really is important to see what value you're getting out of the networks. There are some of the big ones. I would say Facebook and Twitter. Even if you're not realizing all you can out of it, I still would recommend, in my own opinion, having those social networks, because in this day and age with so many public agencies on social media, it's going to stand out if you're not utilizing those networks. But maybe a Pinterest, for instance, it doesn't really support your mission. Maybe you just don't have anything that's really visual to share, and if Pinterest doesn't make sense for you, then I think there's no problem with not using a platform like that.
Okay, we got a couple of more here, so I hope you've got some more time to hang out here, Christy. Kara Allheim wants to know, can you provide any successful county government social media sites? And before you answer that, I will just say, Kara, you ought to check out King County, Washington, which is Seattle. They have a pretty extensive array of social media sites and a great policy.
Okay, cool. That's a very good question. Good county. And of course, you asked me this, and off the tip of my tongue, I'm thinking of all city government social media sites. But yeah, King County, Washington, I would say check them out. Also, Hennepin, I want to say Hennepin County. Minnesota. I know that's a major county somewhere, and I'm forgetting, was it Minnesota? Minnesota, yes. I have heard them speak before about their social media program and their county, particularly on Twitter. I believe that their social media manager, and I'm forgetting her name right now, but she has just really a great presence for them. She shares a lot of tips on specifically what to do on their channels. I think one thing I learned from her was personalizing it for the person who's speaking on the agency's behalf. So it's a lot harder to be mad at someone on social media because your issue is not resolved or because you have an important issue if you know who the person is behind it. So for instance, on your profile language on your Twitter page, doing something like you know, posts monitored or posts made by, you know, Michelle Smith or something like that. And at the end of a certain post, signing off with the initials so that you know, oh, it's actually, you know, a person behind it, and it's harder to be mad when they're a person and they're just trying to be helpful as opposed to nameless community. So I would definitely check out Hennepin County, and there are so many more. I'm forgetting off the tip of my tongue. Follow me on social media, because right after this call, I am going to take a look back and refresh my memory and share a couple of really great counties on social media with you.
Okay, another question. What resources do you recommend for government agencies that have limited marketing budgets?
Limited marketing budgets. Okay, well, the beauty, of course, of social media, they say, is that, you know, they're free networks and it doesn't require any capital to get it started. Of course, we know the reality is that it's staff time and staff resources and just coming up with the content to post on those networks. So if you have limited marketing budget, you're not going to, of course, put a lot of stock into ads. One of the things you might consider is that your budget that you do have for marketing that you're traditionally doing in print means, say, you're putting a flyer or some text in the sewer bill inserts, and that costs some money, or you're posting something in a different way. Maybe you're printing out brochures to put at the public counter, something like that. You might consider working with the various departments in turning those into trials in terms of social media, in terms of maybe some social media ad dollars to promote their programs. So whereas your county might not have a big marketing budget within your the county administrator's office, and perhaps that's where you work out of, I can bet that some of your individual agencies, some of those departments within, probably have a budget that they're using for some type of public communications that might not fall under the purview of what you're doing in the administrator's office. So check on those, see if you can convert some of that into social media dollars. Look particularly into what you can do on social media that really achieves their mission objectives, and do just a pilot run to see really what works. I think you can also rely on interns, unpaid interns, to some extent. I would recommend, if you do use interns because you're strapped for cash and really focusing on social media, that you use them for the content development and you use them for the idea generation, but you stop there and don't have them manning your social media handles themselves. Because I think that there's a lot of experience that you bring to the picture, there's a lot of knowledge in terms of the voice of these messages, and there's just a lot of responsibility. I don't think you want to give that to an intern, but you can certainly have a social media intern that you use to fuel you and to give you ideas, and they could even do some scheduling of social messages in your publishing platform that you then go in and give the final approval for. So those are just a couple of ideas.
All right, I think we have almost got them all answered. A couple of people are asking again, are we going to have the slides available? Yes, we will post those on our website, and we will link to Christy's website, so she has an even more in-depth presentation on this topic and other information that you might find on her site. Katie Kleitz was asking, is there a helpful website or resource for implementation of social media policies? And I just wanted to point her to a page on the NACIO website where we have actually compiled a handful of social media policies from counties around the country, and I'm hoping y'all are seeing that now. But we've got them from a couple of counties here in North Carolina, Colorado, Virginia, Palm Beach County, Florida, Stafford County, Virginia. So there's a lot of information on our website. You see underneath there the King County, Washington social media planning tool. So that's a great way for them. That's how they decide what kind of information is going to be, what kind of social media channel is right for a particular agency or issue. So Christy, I don't know if we have any more questions. It looks like we've got everything. So I want to just show one more time Christy's website, governmentsocialmedia.com, and make sure you check out the Social Media Conference and Expo next April in Reno. Reno is a great, what do they call it, the biggest little town?
Biggest little city in the world.
Biggest little city in the world. NACIO actually had their conference there a few years ago, and I will agree with that. It is a big little city. Well, Christy, thank you for coming. I think you can see by the fact that we still have 35 people on the line that your information was very well received by our audience. I do appreciate your time, and to everybody out there, I will be putting her slides up on our website with some more information, and you should be getting a link in the next day or two so that you would be able to go back and watch this entire presentation again on demand. And I'm not sure how long GoToMeeting leaves up those archives, so make sure you do that pretty quickly before they delete them. So again, thank you, Christy. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. And as always, if you have any questions about NACIO, feel free to go to our website and just click on the Contact Us button, and you'll have a link to all of the members of our board of directors, and you can email any of us about anything, and we'll be happy to help you out. So thank you, Christy, and thank you, everybody, and have a great day.